Hello, I'm Sid from Chef at Large and you're watching the India Food Network. Today I'm going to show you how to make creamy mashed potatoes. Possibly the most delicious and simple mashed potatoes you have ever eaten. Stay tuned. Now we're going to look at the ingredients for our creamy mashed potatoes. Please be warned, this is not a healthy recipe in any way, though it could be called healthier than the one which uses double the butter, so relatively healthy. So what we have here are two potatoes which I've peeled and kept aside there. We've got a chunk of butter. Remember what I said about healthy. We've got a ton of, not a ton, slightly less than a ton of grated pantano. You could also use any other hard cheese you like. You could use pecorino, you could use parmesan, you could use any hard cheese, or you don't have to use a hard cheese, you can use any sort of cheese really. But this is what I find adds the most character to mashed potatoes because of its sheer cheesiness, and it's slightly aged as well, so it comes across beautifully. The cheesiness is a very, how do I put it, sophisticated. Okay, so, and we also got a bit of pepper there. And so what we're going to do now is to cut the potatoes into chunks, boil them in salted water, and then mash the whole lot with whatever you want to put in this. But you have to remember to use the salt with a pinch of salt. So what I mean with that is, since we've already got a lot of salt in the butter over there, we've already got a lot of salt in the cheese, you want to be careful about the amount of salt you put into the final product. So I'm just going to now put these things off my chopping board. Keep the butter in view because that's a very inspiring sight. Butter is always good for anybody and anything, anywhere. Cut the potato into chunks. So I'm going to cut this one potato into 8 chunks. Now we are cutting the potato into chunks. Now there are two ways of boiling this. You can either, like to say, the best boiled potatoes are baked. Why is that? The best boiled potatoes are baked because they actually steamed. You cover them in aluminum foil and you bake them, so there's very little moisture that gets into the potato. The other way is to just dunk them into a pot of water and wait till they boil, and then you peel them and then you mash them. And from that point of view, this is probably the worst way, but I'm doing this because I want my potatoes fast. When you have this craving for mashed potatoes, you really don't want to wait for the oven to heat up and then to later on have to juggle the potatoes while you're frantically trying to peel them when they're hot. So this is the fastest way of doing it. Now I'll take the second potato, just chop that a bit there, and cut it into 8 pieces. So we just start there, we switch on the gas and we put the pot over there, and we would like to add some salt to this. It just helps the general flavor develop, and we'll wait for a while, and then when the water starts boiling, we'll put the potatoes in there because in any case we've already diced them, and in any case they're going to have a fair amount of water in them. We don't want them to sit there and soak in the water as well. So we'll wait for the water to boil and then we'll dunk the potatoes in. Alright, so we need to put in the potatoes. The water is boiling, so we put in some potatoes in there, and my glasses are misting up, so you want to remember perhaps not to do anything which requires clear vision while you're bending over a steaming pot. And they're in there. They will boil pretty fast because they're cut into pieces. Alright, so now our potatoes are boiled and we've got our pepper there, we've got our butter there, and we've got some lovely cheese. So the first thing we're going to do is just add some of this lovely butter. Now we don't want to add too much of it because, okay, there's nothing that's too much butter, but it shouldn't really be clumping in pools of butter out there. So I wouldn't mind that, but some of your guests might. So we're going to put some of this butter in there and then the cheese and then mash it all up together. So the butter goes inside, and that's not enough butter. Some more butter in there. Now we'll put in some of this cheese, and now we'll get some of this white pepper in there. Now I prefer white pepper, but you could probably put any sort of pepper you like. White pepper gives it a little bit of a mildly gritty texture that sort of offsets the smoothness of the rest of the mixture. So then we just mash it, and these potatoes, I think they're going to soak all the butter right up, and if we're really lucky today, I'll be able to add all the butter to the mixture. It might be actually easier to pick up the bowl and mash it in there. Now the thing is, you must remember to mash your potatoes with a fork, because if you try to use anything else, like perhaps you might have the bright idea of putting it into a mixie, or you might like to use one of those potato masher thingies which come. most of the time, if you use those, you will probably end up with mashed potatoes that are sticky and stretchy. And though there's a scientific reason behind that, I'm not going to get into that now. But the fact of the matter is that you must use a fork to mash your potatoes. Now, if you want really creamy potatoes, if you want it creamier than it is now, or creamier than it tastes to you, you could also consider adding some milk into the mixture. If you add milk in there, it'll give the potatoes a little bit more smoothness. It'll make it easier to pour onto a plate, and so on and so forth. You know what? I think I'll add some more butter. So we're mixing these, and like I said, a bit of milk can definitely help the creaminess of the potatoes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little milk in there, just a little bit, and remember to add it bit by bit because you do not want mashed potatoes on your plate leaking milk. So add it bit by bit so the potatoes can absorb the liquid and make it nice and creamy. You know, you can put a bit of garlic inside this as well. It'll taste absolutely beautiful. In fact, if you think about it, if you just take a piece of toast, put a layer of mashed potatoes on it, and a layer of caramelized onions, I guarantee it, you will be in nirvana. Beautiful. And would you believe it, a few minutes later we've got the creamiest mashed potatoes ever. These potatoes will go with anything. You can put them in a sandwich, you can accompany them even with other potato things like samosas, because their creamy, very mellow texture will add a beautiful note to anything spicy, even if it is potatoes. So if you like this show, please subscribe to the India Food Network, and if you have any feedback, write in.